Number 5. Nicola Priest. Nicola Priest was a 23-year-old mother and influencer of some sort. She would post TikTok videos on and off in hopes to gain fame and attention. While her audience wasn't such die-hard fans of Nicola, they loved her little adorable daughter, Kaylee Jade Priest. Little did they know, Priest would one day take her own daughter's life. Her fans noticed in TikTok videos that Kaylee Jade Priest did show signs of abuse, but didn't think much of it. They believed that she was a kid and perhaps fell while playing and hurt herself. However, there was far much more to it. Kaylee Jade Priest's mother and 22-year-old boyfriend, Calum Redfern, used this little girl as a punching bag. They would occasionally beat her up with the intention to cause serious harm. One night, Calum Redfern came over to Nicola's apartment in hopes that he would be getting lucky. However, due to Kaylee's constant crying, they could not focus on having sex. And why was Kaylee crying? She was crying because she was vomiting severely, which was also a byproduct of being beaten up so badly. Both her mother and Calum lost their temper, and when Kaylee wouldn't stop crying, they beat her up so brutally that she died on the spot. Number 4. Annie Nina Dewani. Annie was a Swedish woman of Indian origin who was brutally murdered while on a honeymoon in South Africa after the taxi in which she and her husband Shrin Dewani were traveling was hijacked. On the 12th of November, the couple met an engaged taxi driver, Zola Tonga, at the Cape Town International Airport, and he agreed to be their personal tour guide and driver. On the 13th of November, Tonga drove them to a surfside restaurant in the Strand suburb, but after their meal, he drove them straight into a township called Guguletu. Shortly after they turned off the main road, 2 armed men hijacked the vehicle. After driving a short distance, Tonga and Shrin were robbed and ejected from the vehicle. At 7:50 a.m. on the 14th of November, Annie Dewani was found dead at the back of the VW Chiron taxi. She had suffered a single gunshot wound to her neck. Zola Tonga, alongside 2 accomplices, were arrested, and even though they have implicated Shrin Dewani, the husband, as the mastermind for murder, he was not charged and is now in a same-sex relationship. Number 3. The Boy in the Box. We are still no closer to uncovering the mystery of what happened to the boy in the box, even after 60 years. It all began on a freezing February day in 1957 on a roadway just outside of Philadelphia. While checking his traps, a young muskrat hunter came across a cardboard box in the woods. The body of a little child, stripped naked and mangled, was found within it. The muskrat hunter apparently kept the secret to himself until a braver soul discovered the boy. The kid was between the ages of 3 and 7 and had been horribly mistreated. He appeared weak, malnourished, and unkempt. His hair had been chopped shortly before he died. Small scars covered in his entire body, particularly on his foot, groin, and chin. The police took the boy's fingerprints in the hopes of matching it, but nothing was found. Hundreds of thousands of flyers were sent around the neighborhood requesting information about the unnamed boy, but no one responded. His parents never claimed him as one of their children. He was dubbed America's unknown child until 2022 when he was identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli.
This morning, a decades-old murder mystery partially solved.
For 65 years, the story of who would come to be known as America's unknown child has haunted this community.
Investigators say they now know the boy in the box was 4-year-old Joseph Augustus Zarelli of West Philadelphia, discovered back in 1957. He was found beaten to death, malnourished and nude, wrapped in a blanket, and left in a cardboard box on the side of the road.
In his very short life, it was apparent that this child experienced horrors that no one should ever be subjected to.
Joseph's body was exhumed in 1998. Officials collected DNA and gave him a proper burial. But it was a DNA sample taken in 2019 that led to a major break.
Our top match was like a second and a half cousin. Second cousin was third cousin.
They were able to then connect Zarelli, born January 13, 1953, to his mother. Police then found siblings and used the DNA sample and birth records to make the match. Misty Gillis is a forensic genealogist who has spent the last 3 years working on this case, now bringing her daughters with toy cars from the 50s to Joseph's grave.
I've actually known about this case since I was a child. I want to have his story told. I want him to be out in the world with, to do him justice.
While this is a major development, this case is far from being solved.
We may not make an arrest, we may never make an identification, but we're gonna do our darndest to try.
Police have not revealed the identity of Joseph's parents, both deceased, or his siblings, but vow to solve this murder mystery. Joseph will soon have a dignified resting place with plans to etch his name on his headstone, an unknown child no more.
Number 2. Sharon Tate. On the 8th of August 1969, shortly after midnight, Tate and her friends were brutally murdered by members of the Manson family cult. Their bodies were discovered the following morning by Tate's housekeeper. When police arrived on the scene, the bodies of Tate and her friends were found in the living room, with a long rope around each of their necks connecting them. It's important to note that Sharon Tate was 8 months pregnant at the time of her murder and had been stabbed 16 times, and that 5 of the wounds were in and of themselves fatal. When the murderers were finally apprehended, when asked about the murders, they claimed it was not about the identity of the victims, but more so the address of the house, which had previously been rented by an acquaintance of Charles Manson.
After you knew what that had happened at Sharon Tate's, the most brutal murder that people were aware of. Not that there's not a lot of other brutality around, but this got attention. What'd you think?
Well, I looked over in Vietnam and I said...
No, what'd you think about Sharon Tate and her unborn baby?
What did I think about it?
Yeah.
It's not my world. I don't live in that world.
Well, so you didn't care?
Care?
Suppose
What the
technically...
hell does that mean, care?
Well, it means love. That means some
Put
sense
me
of...
in a solitary confinement, break my teeth out, break my ribs, bust me up, kick me down a hole,
Right.
and then come back and tell me about care. I don't know what care is, man.
Number 1. The Hello Kitty murder. On March 17, 1999, Fan Man Hee was abducted by 3 men and 1 girl after she stole a triad member's wallet. Their plan was to make money off her by pumping her out to other men. However, during her imprisonment, she was tortured and raped. According to a source, she was beaten with metal bars, sometimes while being strung up and used as a punching bag. On one occasion, Fran was kicked in the head around 50 times, while spices were being rubbed into Fan's wounds. Her legs and feet were burnt with candle wax and hot plastic, and she was forced to do very inhumane things like eat feces and urine, and was forced to smile and say she enjoyed the beatings. If she refused, they subjected her to even harsher torture. This treatment eventually led to traumatic shock and ultimately death. After she succumbed, the captors dismembered and boiled the remains, and her skull was sewed inside of a Hello Kitty doll, while the rest of her body was discarded. Ultimately, only her skull, one tooth, and some internal organs were recovered in a plastic bag.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you get notified about all our top 5 videos. Hope to see you soon.